Today we're taking a deep dive into the newest monitor in the BM5 series from PortKeys, the BM5WR. Now I do believe this is the 4th generation in the series of BM5, and the only one I ever used was the original back in 2019. And the good news is, this new WR version has a lot of cool new features. The coolest one being is that you can now control your Komodo via the BM5WR without any additional cables. So let's jump in right away and I'll show you guys how you can connect the BM5WR to the Komodo's Wi-Fi signal. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is make some changes or verify some things within the Komodo menu itself. So from the main home screen on the Komodo here, I'm going to tap menu. I'm going to go down in here to communication, jump into the communication menu. From there, I jump into the Wi-Fi menu. And the very first thing is to verify that you are in ad hoc mode. You probably already will be, but it's good just to double check these things. Now I'm going to jump down and jump into the ad hoc menu. And here's where you probably will have to change some things like I did. So the first thing is make sure that your SSID label starts with the word Komodo. So there's a little trick to this. The SSID label can literally still be anything you want it to be. The only key factor being that the first word literally has to be Komodo in order for the PortKeys monitor to detect the Wi-Fi signal. So for me, I just kept things simple and just kept the SSID label just straight up Komodo. And then your passphrase can still be literally whatever you want it to be. And the next thing you want to do is just verify that you are in the 2.4 gigahertz band, because the PortKeys monitor is not 5G, it's 2.4G. From there, we can now tap directly into the PortKeys touchscreen menus. So you're just going to tap and slide down to access the camera control menu. Then obviously you want to make sure that you have the Wi-Fi USB mode enabled, and then tap this camera Wi-Fi logo. Make sure Wi-Fi is toggled on, obviously. Now with me, I've already connected the camera once, and if you tap my device, you'll see there Komodo is in there. But if this is your first time connecting the BM5WR to the camera, you will just tap add new device. So it detects the Komodo, then you would tap Komodo, and then it asks for the passphrase, and it's literally whatever passphrase that you have typed into the menu on the Komodo itself for your Wi-Fi passphrase. And then you're good to go. Now the cool thing is here is that the PortKeys will always auto-connect to the Komodo's Wi-Fi signal. As long as the camera's Wi-Fi is on, the BM5WR will just automatically connect to that signal. Now, to access the camera control, again, you tap and slide down. And from here, you can adjust your shutter angle, your ISO, your frames per second, the color temperature, and your exposure values, and of course, record control. Now, if you're using an electronic lens, you can also use the PortKeys monitor to adjust your iris or focus control. So you can just tap where it says focus, and now we jump into the autofocus menu. You can toggle on and off between autofocus and manual focus. And if we tap this little hand right here, we will jump into the autofocus mode. Now, anywhere I tap on the screen, it will pull focus to. And you'll see where momentarily the focus peaking turns on. That's just a feature of the monitor. Now, depending on your lighting situation or whatever particular lens you happen to be using, obviously, autofocus responsiveness is going to vary from lens to lens. But either way, that's a pretty rad feature, because it's doing all of this directly through the Komodo's Wi-Fi signal. The only cables I have attached is the SDI cable for video feed and my PTAP cable. Now, another option for pulling focus if you're using manual lenses is you can tap and swipe up. And now we're into the focus menu. And through this menu, you can control focus via the Tilt the Nucleus M or the Nucleus Nano. So on here, as you can see, you can control your focus, your zoom, your iris. You can even set hard stops, and you still have your record control as well. However, to control the tilt motors, you do need an additional cable that is not included with the monitor. So on the back of the monitor, you'll see a port here labeled focus puller, and that's actually where you would connect the separate cable in order to control either the Nucleus M or the Nucleus Nano. And I've already demonstrated in the past in my review of the PortKeys LH5H monitor, because that monitor literally has this same feature as well. And in that video, I was pulling focus off the touchscreen via the Tilta Nucleus Nano. So now I want to showcase some other cool features that I think are really rad about the new BM5WR that weren't on the original BM5 back a couple years ago, at least not on the original firmware anyways. So as always, to access the tools and build your own custom tool menu layout, you tap the screen and swipe right. So here you'll see that I have a few tools that I already added to my custom tool menu. But if you tap this plus sign right here, you can pull up all the tools and features that this monitor offers. So quickly here we have check field, guides, crosshair, grids, peaking, false color, zebra, underscan, vector scopes, luma histo, RGB histo, luma waveform, RGB wave, all waveform, which is all scopes, time code, audio meters, HDR, HLG mode, 3D LUT imports, zooming, image capture, and image overlay. And like I said previously, you can add each one on your own touchscreen menu here, or also there are 4 hard function quick keys as well. First tool that I'm most stoked about is the image capture and overlay feature. Now this is a feature that I really enjoyed about the small HD monitors. And how it works on the small HD OS is you can take a screen grab via the monitor and then it's stored to an internal SD card that's in the monitor. So when I first heard that PortKeys has this feature now, I was a little concerned because the BM5 does not have an SD card slot. And then I was like, oh no, am I gonna have to have a USB stick hanging out of the monitor all the time if I wanna use that feature? And the answer is no. So this is really cool. The BM5 WR has internal memory that allows you to store up to 16 images. So let me demonstrate this now. So the first thing is you will tap the image capture logo, and then you will see a white frame. And then you'll just simply tap the screen. Whenever you're ready to take the screen grab, you'll see the frame changes yellow, and then it's stored into the monitor's internal memory. Now to access those, we'll tap the screen again. This little logo right here with the double photos on it, that is the overlay. So you go in there and then you'll see it instantly overlays the last one in your library. Now let's fast forward to the next day and let's say you have reshoots or whatever the case may be. So now we're gonna jump into the library. So to do that, when you're in your tool menu layout screen here, you will swipe right, and here you will see some options here that you can change, the blending and the blink speed. You can have the option to use the latest, and there it is. So now I'm on the latest, but if we wanted to, because you can see here the image and then now it's popping on there. Now if you turn that off, you'll see a little logo with a magnifying glass. So we can tap that and now we're into our image library. Now it's stored with all of your 16 other images. Now the downside to this system is I have not found a way to delete each individual image. So basically the only way to reset is to delete all of your images, completely wiping your entire image library. So that is a bit of a bummer. I also am not sure if there's a way somehow that I don't know of to get the images off of the internal memory and export them out via USB, because that would be cool too. Because you know, this is a nice feature. It would be even nicer to have a bunch of screen grabs of whatever project you're working on just for your own personal archives. But of course to do that, you would need a way to get the images off of the monitor's internal memory. So hopefully that'll be something that we can look forward to in a future firmware update. Huh, PortKeys? So some other cool new tools is you can have time code displayed on the monitor now. So you can turn this on and you know, it depends. You can put it anywhere on the screen that you want it. And as you'll see here, it does match with the Komodo's internal time code. They've also updated the false color tool. So now you can have access to Ari's false color mode, or you can customize your own false color and define your own over/under parameters. So in here you can see I can set exactly what my over and under is. So this is a really cool feature to have because this allows you to sync the monitor's false color with your camera's internal exposure limits. Something else, PortKeys claims that they've updated the false color tool as well. They said they updated the algorithm, so that's cool. There's some other different options in here now. We have color edge enhanced style. You can set the sensitivity to all of these things. We have grayscale style, color style, so that's pretty cool. You also now have the option to send out a LUT and a waveform via the SDI port on the back of the monitor, so that's very interesting as well. But of course, they still have one of my favorite tools of the original BM5 from a couple years back, and that is the very simple but beautiful multi-scope tool. And I just absolutely love that. This is a 2200 nit screen with a 1000:1 contrast ratio. You have tempered glass, an all aluminum alloy body. The scopes look good, the screen is crisp and sharp. It's always super bright. No matter what the lighting situation is, you'll always be able to see your monitor. I've just always been a pretty big fan of the clarity of PortKeys monitors. And PortKeys does claim that they calibrate all of their monitors via X-Rite software before shipping them out. However, you do have the option to turn that auto calibrate function off and fully calibrate the monitor yourself. So to access those settings, you tap and swipe left. The first thing I would do is tap the cogwheel and turn off screen color calibration. Then if you tap this picture logo right here, now you can fully customize everything: the brightness, the contrast, chroma, sharpness, tint, backlight, and color temperature. And as you see here, this is also the menu where you can adjust for anamorphic. A specified user option, you can completely define the anamorphic: 2.35, 2 times, 1.85, 1.66, 1.5, 1.42, 1.33, and back to 1x. So that's lots of different anamorphic flavors. But now let's go back into the cogwheel, because it's here that you will find your fan control, as well as the ability to turn on or off your black level and gesture zooming. And gesture zooming is really cool because this allows me to pinch to zoom directly on the monitor and move anywhere I want to check for critical focus. Also in this menu is where you can download your LUTs off of the USB stick. You can adjust the screen orientation, as well as load the LUT out and send it downstream via the SDI. And of course, upgrade firmware via the USB stick as well, which I do highly recommend you update the firmware when you get your monitor, because PortKeys doesn't always make sure they all have the latest firmware on them when they ship them out. However, it is fairly easy to find on their website, or you could just simply email PortKeys and they will get it over to you. Because this is something nice that I've noticed about PortKeys in my experience, is that they do respond fairly quickly to their customers, and they always try their best to accommodate everyone. So some other little things I've noticed about the differences between the new WR version and the original OG one back in 2019. Screen is a tad larger. It now comes in at 5.5 inches versus the old 5.2 inches. However, there is still no HDMI out. There is an SDI in and out, and here on the side we have an HDMI in, but still no HDMI out. So that can be a tad limiting, just depending on what kind of other monitors you have with you on set or what kind of wireless video transmission system you're using. But all in all, I still think that the BM5WR is a pretty stellar piece of kit. One last thing I want to point out is that the new WR is not exclusive to the Komodo only. So you can still control other cameras via the touchscreen. So if we go back in here to the camera control menu, you can see all the other cameras that you can control with this monitor. Now, I do know a few people inquired about battery life, but I'm a V-mount guy, so sorry, you're just not gonna find that information here. I just don't enjoy swapping out little tiny bricks all day long. Cool part about that is that PortKeys does include a P-tap cable with the kit. However, I do know that a lot of people seem to be concerned with blowing out monitors or SDI ports when using V-mount batteries. I do read a lot of this happening over on different forums. So you can imagine how often I get that question, which is literally all the time, and my answer never changes. There is an order to how cables are plugged in and removed, and it has nothing to do exclusively with the Komodo. I don't care what camera you're using, or I don't even care what monitor you're using for that matter. This has always been a thing. There is a correct order in which you connect and disconnect your cables, as well as using good shielded cables and good V-mount adapters that have surge protection. I mean, all of these things come into play. And I've already demonstrated in the past on how to properly connect and disconnect monitors from your camera, so I'll leave a link to that old video down in the description below just in case you need a little refresher. Now, the monitor does get a tad warm to the touch, so this is where the fan control really comes in handy. So maybe you're out there on a hot summer day and you're sitting in between takes. It doesn't hurt just to tap into the menus and crank the fan up on high, and then when it's time to roll, just drop it down back to medium or even low. And here you can see how loud it is when it's on high. So that's high. And now I'm going to drop it down to medium, or middle they call it, and now low. Now low is pretty much like not having the fan on at all, so that is nice. The other little hum is from the Komodo. So yeah, the fan is always on, but again, you see there, low is pretty much non-existent when, talking about audio levels. As always, there are links down below so you can check this unit out for yourself, do all the research you need to do. And at the time of this taping, which is late May in 2021, the BM5WR is on the PortKeys website going for $5.99. Now, if you enjoy the content here, or maybe you're just a fan of me, there's lots of different ways to support the channel. I don't have any sponsors here, so my biggest support comes from the Dog Times Patreon, which is basically our own filmmaking club. We have our own Discord chat with 14 different channels, as well as I provide exclusive weekly videos giving work feedback, as well as providing a virtual behind-the-scenes journey, taking everyone with me on all the jobs I do through Dog Times Productions. There's also this weird new YouTube membership program, so if you want to find out more about that, you can just tap that join button down below. You will find it right next to that subscribe button, and if you are new here, you should just smash that subscribe button, because otherwise I could just get swallowed up in the algorithm and you'll never see my face again. And if you're still watching this video up to this point, I would imagine you wouldn't want that. So hit subscribe and we'll see you next time.